All right, guys, I figured it's summer. Let's dig into bergamot. Today I've got 13 bergamot fragrances for life. These are the 13 bergamot fragrances I would pick if I had to go through the deep dive video I did on bergamot fragrances. In case you like to watch long form videos like 50 plus bergamot fragrances, you can go catch that video. But this video is 13 bergamot fragrances for life. So I went through and discovered, or actually not discovered, chose the bergamot fragrances I would pick to feature in this video. There are a few fragrances that I left off. Fragrances like Parade from Celine I felt was a bit more focused on orange blossom neroli. Tygar and Vibrato I felt were a bit more grapefruit focused, even though they utilized bergamot. That was the reason why I left those off. But I've gone through several times and selected some of the best bergamot fragrances, and that's what this video is all about. So let's get started with the list. Before we do though, what are your favorite bergamot fragrances? Add a comment below. So let's get started with one of the Italian houses, and they tend to really do a great job with bergamot, especially since, we've got bergamot coming from Calabria. As you can see here, we've got Bergamotto di Calabria from Acqua di Parma, and we have two fragrances here with the same name and smelling different, but utilizing the main focus note, bergamot. I actually really enjoy bergamot as a note. It's a really unique citrus fruit that is utilized a lot in fragrances. And if it's not a bergamot focused fragrance, which these are, they usually tend to use bergamot. It's kind of like the cure-all for citruses in a lot of fragrances as top notes. And when I say cure-all, I feel like the other citruses kind of go into directions, like lemons would be super tart, the orange and mandarin orange might be like on the sweet side, and then you've got grapefruit that goes into the bitter side. This I feel like is easier to work with, plus it has a bit of a floral edge to it. It has a flower, or it's kind of a citrusy florally kind of a smell to me, and so I feel like it works best in fragrances, and that's why they use quite a bit of it in fragrances for top notes. But with this video, we've got the bergamot as the feature note. So with Acqua di Parma's Bergamotto di Calabria, it's bergamot as the star note or the featured note, but you also have other notes in here like lemons, there's cedar, ginger, musk, vetiver, and benzoin. So the stronger the notes, the deeper the notes get, those are becoming what's in the base notes, and bergamot tends to generally be a top note. You'll see it in a non-bergamot focused fragrance at top note, and you'll see it in a bergamot focused fragrance in a top note, but the quantities are going to be different, obviously. You're going to have a lot more bergamot featured in fragrances here in this video compared to something that's more of an amber, but they have a fresh start with bergamot. So this is kind of spicy, citrusy, musky. There's a zest about it, lots of woods, and a slight bit of amber resin in the base, but I think by the time you get to the base, the resin amber feature part of this fragrance doesn't really shine, because again, the bergamot, the citruses are pretty dominant here. It's a nice bergamot forward fragrance. If you haven't tried it, I recommend the Blue Mediterraneo collection. They've got some great fragrances. One of the more popular ones is Fico de Amalfi. Let's move on to Mugler's Cologne. I've got the come together version here, and I'm featuring it here because it was brought back. I don't know if it's actually made it back to the States. These caps are kind of not very nice. So it's no longer come together. I think they've just relaunched it as the original Mugler Cologne. And I've got a vintage bottle that I recently acquired from a brother of mine, my only brother, who had a bottle saved way in the back of his closet. And I'm like, I'm taking that. You're not using it. Look, this is actually a tester that I might have actually shown him quite a while ago to buy, and he hasn't used it. This thing is falling off. Sadly, it's just fell off. But this is actually the original version, and it smells so good. I guess he's kept it in a pretty good condition. But I started using Mugler's Cologne way in the early 2000s. I liked its soapiness, its greenness. It's got a lot of bergamot. There's petitgrain here, and I think that's what's the distinct smell here. The bergamot mixed in with the petitgrain. Plus, there's a lot of floral notes in here as well, like orange blossom, and there's a neroli in here. And of course, there's also a little bit of white musk. So it's quite soapy. It's juicy, it's green, and bitter. The petitgrain note comes off bitter, because it's the leaves. The leaf itself is on the bitter side. I'm going to try the come together version as well. If anybody knows what's going on with the launch of Mugler Cologne or the relaunch of Mugler Cologne in the States, let us know at a comment below. I'm a big fan of this creation. I've loved it ever since I bought it. I was always a Mugler fan, starting out with Angel, smelling it on the ladies, then buying Amen, then Amen, overusing Amen for quite a few bottles, and then Mugler Cologne came out, and I was like kind of like the clean kind of area of fragrances, the more clean, soapy, fresh. And it was launched around the same time as I joined a gym, so I was using it quite a bit at the gym. But yeah, great bergamot fragrance, definitely a bergamot fragrance for life, Mugler's Cologne. And if you guys know what's going on with the relaunch of the Mugler Cologne, let us know, add a comment below. Let's move on to Essential Parfums Nice Bergamot. And I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about the Nice Bergamot Extrait. So there are two different ones, but the Nice Bergamot Extrait is fairly new, so I'm not too familiar with it. But I've been a fan of the original for quite a while. And it's juicy. It's a very juicy fragrance and somewhat juicier than the Mugler Cologne to me. Whereas the Mugler Cologne goes super soapy, this one is juicy. It's a bit more fruity, like the fruit forward, the fruit part of the bergamot comes out. But this one also has a floral notes like jasmine. There's cedar here. There's ylang ylang and some tonka. So there's a slight tropical side to this, not super strong, and some depth in the base as well. It's very fresh, and I like that it's juicy. Like the juiciness of the bergamot is quite prominent. It's almost like it's over ripened, so there's a slight sweetness about it. That's kind of what I like about it. But in comparison to the extract, it's gotten pulpy here. So I didn't write any information about this. I don't have any information on it. I just spritzed it on, and it's got a more presence, a depth to it, and I feel like it's pulpy and juicy, but smells fantastic. I'm gonna have to test it around and see. But I've been waiting for this one for some time. Big fan of bergamot and fragrances. I feel like bergamot fragrances are super fresh and perfect for summer. And again, since we're in the summer, these will be great. If you want something stronger, definitely go for the extract. And you can totally tell the difference between the two. You can actually experience the depth of the extract in comparison to the thinness of the original Nice Bergamot from Essential Parfums. So I'm always asking her, is it Nice Bergamot or Nice Bergamot? Since the brand is from France and Nice is in the south of France. It's not, maybe it is, who knows? But I'll take both, but that's a great scent if you haven't tried it yet. I'm also featuring this here. Again, I don't know the certainty about this brand in the States, but as I mentioned in some videos before, Essential Parfums is selling in Asia. Most importantly, I saw one of their stores last year in October in Beijing, and this Bergamot Soleil has been one of my favorites. This one actually kind of has a bit of a smell of the rind. It's almost like a little bitter, but there's bergamot here, there's bitter orange, there's musky ambrette seeds, there's aromatic notes like lavender, spices like cardamom. In fact, there's also jasmine, oak moss, and white amber. So bergamot is a very fresh note, so just keep that in mind if you're looking for something super strong. Bergamot's not going to be the kind of fragrance you would wear to have your fragrance last for days. But going back to the extract, it is stronger. The Essential Parfums Nice Bergamot Extract. Here with this, it's super fresh. Again, we're working with the same ingredient of bergamot as a dominant note, but it's a top note. And so here it has a little bit more depth than the original Nice Bergamot, but I wouldn't say it's much stronger than Nice Bergamot. It's a great smell though. I absolutely love anything bergamot focused fragrance. But again, I don't know the certainty about the brand. I'm featuring it here because it's a great scent. I know the fragrance is still selling. It's repackaged though, and I wanted to highlight it as one of the best. That's Atelier Cologne's Bergamot Soleil. Let's move on to Paris Monte Carlo's Bergamotto di Calabria. Remember I said Bergamotto di Calabria from Acqua di Parma? Then we've got Bergamotto di Calabria from Paris Monte Carlo. And so what's the difference? They're slightly different. not super different. This one seems to be a bit peppery and slight bit old school. Gives me like a men's eau de cologne, not eau de cologne, but like a men's citrusy cologne, almost to the point of like a chypre. There's a lot of peppery spices here, but in the end, you've got the same kind of notes. You've got bergamot, lots of it. There's petitgrain here. There's jasmine. There's orange blossom. There's neroli. All of these notes are here, but they also have a lot of peppery notes, like Sichuan pepper and pink pepper is prominent here. So it does give it a slight bit classic edge to the very citrus focused fragrance featuring the bergamot. And of course, there's like a old school men's cologne styling to it, which is not a bad thing. So you'll notice differences between the two. But Paris Monte Carlo's Bergamotto de Calabria versus Acqua di Parma's Bergamotto de Calabria. Which is your favorite, by the way? Let me know. Add a comment below. Which one do you enjoy most? So let's move on to the house of Nishane. It's Colognisé. I actually have 3 Nishane fragrances here, all super prominent with bergamot. So that's why I'm featuring it here. This Colognisé is super juicy, and in comparison to the Bergamotto de Calabria from Paris Monte Carlo, this one comes off super juicy, but once again, still very prominent with a lot of different notes in here. There's some spices, there's some floral notes, there's actually tea here, there's green floral notes, there's grapefruit for slight bitterness, but in the end, it's a well-rounded citrus-focused fragrance, highlighting the bergamot, and you also have thrown in things like citrus floral notes and things like that. It's a really, really pleasant smelling, really wonderful offering. Comes off quite soapy. I would say Colognisé is a bit soapy like the Mugler Cologne, but I wouldn't say it's identical. It just smells really, really wonderful. Absolutely love it. It's really, really refreshing, perfect for the summer heat that you're probably fighting currently. So that's Colognisé from the house of Nishane. Let me know your thoughts on this. They have 3 variations on that. They have the saffron and the hesperide. So it's 3 different versions. Next, we've got another Nishane. This is Wulong Cha. Yes, it's a tea-focused fragrance once again. And the Colognisé also had the tea, but if you're looking for tea and bergamot, this is the one to try. I think the Colognisé features the tea, but it's more about the other notes. The tea is like a supporting note. Here, you can literally smell the tea. The tea acts a bit grassy, a bit herbal, and that kind of smooth quality that tea has in fragrances, with a lot of juicy, kind of slightly pulpy bergamot thrown in. But super fantastic fragrance. There's also mandarin orange here. There's some nutmeg, fig, musk, green, aromatic, spicy, citrusy, juicy, pulpy fragrance. Really, really wonderful. I was a late discoverer of Wulong Cha. Took me a while. I don't know why I hadn't really tried it, because I was always a fan of Nishane, but I was going towards the more intense and more complex sense. But the simplicity of this fragrance, the freshness is what really won me over at a later time, and I really, really love the way this fragrance smells. So it's Wulong Cha. That is from the house of Nishane. Let me know your thoughts. Definitely one of the 13 bergamot fragrances for life. All right, next we're going to the house of L'Artisan Parfumeur. This is Sur l'Herbe. So this is an eau de cologne concentration, but a big fan of this one since day one. In fact, when the fragrance first launched, it came in a clear bottle, and I think it was a bit more colorful label. Later, I think they just moved it over. I think when I first discovered that fragrance, it was during this transition phase from the previous owners of L'Artisan to Puig, and I think they've redone it. In fact, it launched with another fragrance in the same collection, but I think this is the only one in that same collection that exists. And I absolutely really, really love this one. It's bergamot with orange blossom. There's solar notes here. There's white musk and amber, but it's lots of bergamot. It's kind of like in between dry and juicy. So it's kind of like both of best of both worlds. And I kind of like the juicy fragrances, the pulpy fragrances, wet fragrances compared to dry fragrances more. But I absolutely really, really love this one. But really, really wonderful. Really, really awesome scent, I think. And if you like bergamot and fragrances and you haven't tried this one, please do. I recommend this one quite a bit. It's a great one. The only negative, I think, for this one is the fact that it's an eau de cologne. So you're just going to have to be liberally spritzing the stuff on. other than that, it smells fantastic. It's also a Fabrice Pellegrin creation, and he's done a great job on that one. Quite a great fragrance. I hope it's still around though. Last I checked it was, that's why I'm featuring it here. All right, next moving on to the house of Nishane. Once again, this is the third and final fragrance from Nishane in this list. This is Ambra Calabria for a bergamot focused fragrance that goes into the amber direction. And this isn't a green amber fragrance, a fresh amber fragrance, but super, super awesome. Really one of my all-time favorite fragrances from the house of Nishane. The one that's the most underrated here. This has notes of bergamot, of course. There's galbanum here. There's coriander seeds, jasmine. There's green leaves, amber, vanilla, musk. The combination is super amazing. Like, who would have thought to make something like this so wonderful come to life in fragrance form? Well, I think it's one of the most original fragrances from the house of Nishane. And I absolutely cannot get enough of this one. It smells fantastic. I've turned this one on to a lot of folks that have come in for sniff sessions, consultations here, and they end up loving this one, and they hadn't thought about it, and they end up buying bottles. But this Ambra Calabria, man, if you haven't tried it, please do. One of the best scents ever. But just keep in mind, it's an amber in the end. It gets vanillic and ambery resinous in the dry down. But up top, it's green and fresh and juicy and citrusy. Super fantastic fragrance. I love it. It's one of the best from Nishane. That's Ambra Calabria from Nishane. Let me know your thoughts. And then here we've got one of the best bergamot fragrances of all time. It's a super gorgeous smell. It's Bergamot 22 from Le Labo. The smell is just super gorgeous. Really, really beautiful smell. I think they've just created something super wonderful smelling. And I like the bergamot here. It's the juicy variety. It's slight bit tart, sweet. There's greenness around here as well. There's definitely the petitgrain leaf, which is the bitterness of the leaves. You've got orange blossom here. You also have some grapefruit. But in the end, there's some amber. There's cedar and musk in the dry down. There's some woods and vanillic notes as well. But that's still, the fragrance is mostly fresh. So it doesn't really get sweet and vanillic and ambery. It's just how it is in the dry down, but it's mostly about that bergamot, the petitgrain, the grapefruit, and also the orange blossom neroli note that's in here. It's an amazing, amazing smell. Wish it performed better, but again, definitely one of the best from Le Labo for sure. And hands down, one of the best true smells of bergamot fragrances out there in the market. It's Bergamot 22 from Le Labo. Then we go into the house of Vilhelm Parfumerie next. This is Morning Chess, and it's bergamot focused, created by Jerome Epinay, who does a lot of Vilhelm Parfumerie fragrances, and also he does Byredo. This does smell like Aventus or maybe Cedrat Boisé, but it's super juicy. This is like really drippy juicy. And that's what I like about it. It also has greenness from the galbanum note that's in here. Apparently there's galbanum here according to the notes breakdown. It comes off very green. So it's a nice combo of this kind of like green resin note of the galbanum with the juiciness, like super duper juicy from the bergamot together. And then of course there's leather in the dry down and some amber as well. But the leather and amber come pretty late in the stage. It's mostly about the juiciness of the bergamot and the greenness of the galbanum note together. Super amazing fragrance. There's a little bit of patchouli in here as well, which I actually really love. Adds that sexy layer that I really enjoy about patchouli. But in the end, you'll be reminded of Aventus or Cedrat Boisé, but slightly different. It's Morning Chess from the house of Vilhelm Parfumerie. Let me know your thoughts on that. And then there's this one from the house of Xerjoff, probably one of the best bergamot fragrances ever created. But we're going a little bit old school once again. This is Nio from the house of Xerjoff. It's kind of a citrus aromatic quite a bit here. Yeah. There's a little bit of that old school men's cologne, citrus cologne styling here. There's a lot of bergamot, there's neroli, cardamom, there's nutmeg, green leaves, jasmine, amber, cedar, vetiver gaiac with lots of woods in the base. There's also spices like pink pepper here. So it's quite juicy. It's quite juicy, but again, in the background, there's definitely an old school vibe here. And I think it's the fact that there's these spices and aromatic type notes against the juiciness of the citruses that are in here, the greenness with the green leaves. It's awesome. It's really, really great. If you like old school style fragrances, I recommend it. I wouldn't say this is like super duper old school though. It just has those qualities going for it, which I absolutely love. But we're really highlighting the bergamot, and that's what the main note is, and that's what makes this fragrance super special. So that's Xerjoff Nio. Let me know your thoughts on Nio. Add a comment below. And then last but not least, I had to throw this one in here. I bought this last summer in France, in the south of France, or no, in Paris actually, at the airport, so no tax. It's Bergamot Fantastico Extrait 11. I think Guerlain still has Bergamot di Calabria, or I think they have their own Bergamot Calabria. I left that one off on this video. I wanted to highlight this one. This is super strong. It's an extract and intense take on the bergamot, and this is bergamot with bergamot leaves. There's also amber and gaiac in the base. This is not as juicy as I was expecting it to be, or pulpy, but it's quite long lasting for a bergamot. It's also not super sweet. It's a bit on the dry kind of like, you know, when you're dealing with champagne, the dry versus the sweet variety. It's acting a bit like that. So it doesn't come off super sweet. It's dry and a slight bit saltiness. There's like a saltiness about it as well, but it is paying tribute to the bergamot. It's really intense bergamot in your face, super fresh, long lasting, but I wouldn't say you're like super beast mode with this. But in the end, it's a great smell. It's expensive. This is a very expensive fragrance. That's why I bought it in France. I think it's probably over $600 here. Over there, it was 400 something when I bought it, but it's a great scent. If you want something long lasting as far as the citrus goes, as the freshy goes, try Bergamotto or Bergamot Fantastico Extrait 11. And that's the last fragrance, 13 Bergamot Fragrances for Life. I do have one bonus option and also something that I left off the list that I'm going to talk to you about as well. But let me know your thoughts on these bergamot fragrances. Do you have a favorite bergamot fragrance? If I didn't mention it, let me know what it is. Add a comment below. And keep in mind, I left off Tygar Vibrato because in the end, I know those fragrances for grapefruit, not necessarily bergamot. This is a bergamot list, and so I wanted to make sure these are strictly bergamot focused. If you want to watch the deep dive video on bergamot fragrances, please search for it on the channel. I'll see if I can link it in the info box as well. But thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please interact with the video. Do some commenting, liking, sharing, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click that bell icon. And I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. All right, I am talking about this one. I've left it here as a bonus. I'm uncertain this one's going to last. It's still selling at the discounters, and I've been hyping this one quite a bit. It didn't end up in the main list, but I'm talking about it here. This is Hugo Boss's Vigorous Cologne. I know when I posted about it, it was like around $70. It's gone up to like 90 something now, but the fragrance itself is sold for around 300 some dollars. This is also a really modern take on an old school style men's cologne, fresh and citrusy and also mossy. But there's a lot of bergamot here, mandarin orange, there's orange blossom, rosemary, mossy notes, and patchouli. It's an awesome scent, really, really great. If you can still get it, please get it. I highly recommend it as one of the best for summer, but I don't think it'll last around too much longer because I think this collection from Hugo Boss never really caught on. That's why we're seeing a lot of them at the discounters. But it's a great scent if you can still get it. I did buy a backup bottle of it. This is Vigorous Cologne from the house of Hugo Boss. And I do want to say, I left off this one, Bergamotto from the house of Laboratorio Olfattivo, a fragrance created by Jean-Claude Elena. I like it, but to me, it's super dry. And I always associate citruses to be juicy. And I don't get a lot of juiciness here. It's also quite minimalistic. In this collection, there's a few others that I really enjoy. This one just didn't do it for me as much as I wanted it to do it for me. So I've kind of left it off as a bonus option. But what do you guys think of this? Let me know. Add a comment below, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. See you later. Bye-bye.